Frontier Town, the saga of the Roaring West. Frontier Town. El Paso, Cheyenne, Calgary, Tombstone. Frontier Town. Here is the adventurous story of the early West, the tamed and the untamed, from the Pecos to Powder River, Dodge City to Poker Flat. These are the towns they fought to live in and lived to fight for, teeming crucibles of pioneer freedom. Frontier Town!
If you know anything about the frontier, maybe you know my hometown, Dos Rios. I'm Chad Remington. Not alone the one practicing lawyer in town, but almost the only lawyer in the county. Our section of the country was settled by the early Spanish. And although that was in the days of the old vaqueros, the Spanish influence still is evident wherever you go. And believe me, it's not at all unusual because of it for a lawyer to get into trouble, gun trouble. Just a while back, I was riding toward Dos Rios with Cherokee O'Bannon. He owns the town livery stable now that we've convinced him it's safer and more permanent than peddling his genuine Cherokee Indian rattlesnake oil from the back of a wagon. Well, Cherokee and I were loping along when suddenly...
Geronimo's ghost, Chad. Did you hear what I heard?
Not only did I hear those gunshots, Cherokee, but now I can see where they came from. Hey, look over there. See that smoke rising just over the roof of that hay barn?
Why, that's that widow lady's place. What's her name? Bessie Dryden?
Yeah, that sure is Bessie's place, Cherokee. Since this sounds like a pitched battle, maybe it's open to the public. Come on. As we rounded the clump of aspens which shield Bessie's house from the road, we saw a sight which stopped us for a moment. Bessie was standing on her porch, a Winchester in her hands, its barrel aimed at two men who seemed to have stepped out of an illustration from some old Spanish book. And the team of two black horses which pulled the carriage they rode up in wore plumes over their silver-encrusted bridles. Well, Cherokee were off our horses and running toward the porch just as Bessie raised the rifle to her shoulder and took aim at the taller of the two strangers.
Blast you to blazes, I'm not telling you to get off of my place again.
Bessie, put down that gun before someone gets hurt.
You keep out of this.
Senor, your intervention is most fortuitous. You might even have saved this woman's life.
Yeah, well, I'm well
Excuse
able
me,
to...
Bessie, excuse me, but I'm taking that rifle before it goes off again. Now, here, Cherokee, you keep an eye on it.
I'll keep an eye on her, too.
And we both keep eye on la mujer, eh? Si, amigo?
Okay, both watch her. Now, would someone mind telling me what this is all about?
This overdressed oaf come out here and had the brass-bound gall to tell me I'd have to pay him rent for this place I homesteaded myself, or he was going to throw me off.
And despite your threats, madam, I fully intend to. This land, all of it, belongs to the Chavez family.
The Chavez family?
Perhaps I'd better introduce myself. I am Don Alfredo Chavez Nagel, recently from Santa Fe. And this is my servant, Palmero. And you, sir?
Oh, I'm Chad Remington, Mr. Nagel, and I would like to know what you mean by you own all this land. I personally know that Mrs. Dryden and her late husband homesteaded this section more than 20 years ago.
I'm not questioning the homestead, but only 2 weeks ago this came to light.
Oh?
Grant from the King of Spain to my maternal grandfather, Don Alfredo Sepulveda Chavez y Dominguez.
Expect me to believe that?
Oh, wait, you may have to believe it, Bessie. Under the treaty by which we acquired this territory from Spain, we agreed to recognize all crown grants made by the King of Spain previously. May I see that parchment?
I have no reason not to show it to you.
Oh, thank you. It looks legitimate enough.
Are you implying that it may be illegitimate?
Oh, far from it. Not at all. You see, Mr. Nagel, I happen to be a lawyer.
A
by
lawyer?
nature.
Then perhaps this meeting was more fortuitous than I had first believed. Senor Remington, for 3 days, Palmero and I have been driving constantly just to come to Dos Rios for the sole purpose of perfecting my title to this land. For that reason, I am in need of an attorney. And since you are one...
Chad, if you take 5 cents of that land grabber's money,
I haven't taken anything yet, Bessie, but well, since from the description in this deed, Mr. Nagel may hold title not only to your property, but to most of the ranches in this valley, I think it might be good business for all of us if we did ride into my office and talk this over. Don Alfredo Chavez Nagel rode into town alongside of his overdressed driver, Palmero, and rocked Dos Rios like an earthquake. Then we went up to my office over Cherokee's livery stable. And after Nagel explained how he'd found the deed in an old trunk just a few weeks ago, he went on to tell me of his plans.
So you see, Senor Remington, it's not a matter of money with me, it's a matter of pride.
Hmm?
Family pride.
I see.
I want this claim recognized so my sainted mother's family name of Chavez will be perpetuated.
I don't want to appear stupid about this, but if it's not a matter of money, why this shooting fray out at Bessie Dryden's?
Well, that old harridan didn't even ask how much rent I wanted before she grabbed for a gun and started shooting. You see, hers was the first place we came to on our way up from Santa Fe. So I told Palmera to stop in order that we could get acquainted.
Well, how much money do you want for the land, Mr. Nagel?
A token, a mere nothing. $1 a year will be more than enough to compensate me financially and at the same time legally make my deed effective. At least I should think it would under the law.
Well, legally, you're perfectly right. If all of the people living on ranches covered by your Crown grant would pay you nominally $1 a year, it'd certainly be adequate evidence that they recognize your claim.
And that, believe me, sir, is all I want. If you had ever known my mother, how beautiful and sweet she was, you would understand why I want to perpetuate her name by calling this the Ranchos Chavez.
Well, slice me thin and call me jerky. Chad, this man is a real humanitarian.
He certainly must be, Cherokee, because at $1 a year, the most he can make is something slightly in excess of $30.
If you're saying that because you think it's too small an amount for me to pay you a fair fee, here, Senor Remington, a retainer of $200.
Oh, now, just a minute, Mr. Nagel. Not only am I unable to take your retainer, but I'm unable to take your case until such time as we can establish the authenticity and validity of your deed.
Oh? And how do you propose to do that?
Well, normally it might be a long and tedious process. But it so happens that we have a judge living here in Dos Rios who not only has handled several similar cases, but, well, he happens to be an especially good friend of mine.
Especially good, he says. Why, he's practically engaged to the judge's daughter, Libby.
Well, if that's the case, we should be able to get through with this in just a few days.
Oh, we might at that. And this being nearly noon hour, with the judge coming home almost every day for lunch, I think this would be as good a time as any to get his expert opinion. Well, Judge, what do you think?
Seems to be no question about this deed, Chad. And, Mr. Nagel, everything seems exactly as it should be, even down to the seal and ribbons.
Wouldn't those ribbons look lovely on a hat or a new dress?
You'll have to pardon my daughter, Mr. Nagel. She's just like all women. No matter what it is she sees, she tries to figure out some way of wearing it.
That's the way of all beautiful women.
Well, thank you, Mr. Nagel. Did you hear that, Chad?
Well, I certainly did, Libby. And all I can say is, in this case, the client is speaking for his attorney.
Oh, excellent, Mr. Remington. Very well put.
I hope I can do as excellent a job in convincing the ranchers around here to pay you that $1 a year and not combat your claim.
But even with Mr. Nagel charging them only $1 a year for rent?
The folks around here, my dear Libby, have hair-trigger tempers, or else they wouldn't need a judge.
Or a lawyer. I just got a thought. Most of the men affected by this Spanish grant will be attending the meeting of the Cattlemen's Association tomorrow to discuss driving their herds up to market. So if you'll come along with me and back me up, I think we can soon make them realize they're getting off mighty lucky. Getting off lucky. You'd have thought I was down there with process service trying to throw widows and orphans out of their homes. It took almost 5 minutes after I broke the news to bring any semblance of order back to the meeting.
Folks, won't you please quiet down? Chad and I are just trying to tell you facts, and apparently you don't appreciate how fortunate you really are.
Fortunate? With someone else taking our land out from under us?
Now, Kirby, no one's taking anything out from under anybody. Matter of fact, the land doesn't even belong to you. Never did. Except that now Mr. Nagel's willing to let you keep the land by paying him $1 a year.
Yeah, but suppose he changes his mind 2 years from now.
He can't, Bodine. I've drawn leases for everybody that guarantees $1 rental for 49 years.
I've seen Mr. Nagel's deed. It grants to his maternal grandfather in perpetuity the 12,800 acres north of Navajo Pass, as well as the 18,000-odd acres to the south of the pass by the arroyo. And instead of charging you $1 an acre, which would mean $30,000 a year to him, Nagel's just going to charge 27 of you ranchers $1 apiece.
Good grief, men. My own father settled here before most of you did. The ranch he left me is north of the Navajo Arroyo on Mr. Nagel's property. You're no better off nor any worse off than I am. And I'm tickled to death to sign his lease, just as I'm recommending to you all that you should.
Well, I'm not going to spend all week arguing about these leases. If we don't get our cattle up to market, the buyers will have gone back east. And then we won't even have the dollar to pay for the lease. You got the lease with you, Chad? I'll sign.
Well, now you're really talking. If you'll step up here, Mr. Nagel, and sign these leases as owner of the land, I'll see that these men execute them as the tenants.
What's wrong with you, Buck? You'd make a perfect laughing hyena.
How you put it over on them.
Oh, look, my friend. These lapses into your native English aren't necessary at all. Not alone had you better stick to that Spanish dialect, but as my driver, Palmero, you'd better practice it, too.
Oh, si, I practice it good, I think, huh? Yeah, you know, when that judge got up and started talking about the north side of Navajo Pass and then the south side, I thought sure the game was up. I thought somebody had tumbled to what you were going to pull.
My dear Buck, I mean Palmero. I've engaged the finest lawyer in the county, and I have the support of the judge. They are reputable citizens. But what their reputations may be after they've found what we've done with Navajo Pass is something I'd rather not contemplate.
We'll return to the exciting second act of our frontier town adventure in just about 1 minute. And now, Frontier Town.
I don't know how much you know about women. The longer I live, the more convinced I become I don't know too much. But there's one thing I've started to learn about, and that's a woman's intuition. Take that night, the night of the meeting of the Dos Rios Cattlemen's Association. I'd gone over to the judge's house for supper, and after a while, when the moon came up, Libby and I wandered outside. With my success in having all the ranchers sign Nagel's leases, I was feeling pretty good. Not to mention that it was a soft summer evening and Libby was there. You know what I was thinking, Libby? You're like a honeysuckle, all alive and lovely during the day, and Well, at night, at least tonight, just as quiet and wrapped up in yourself.
I'm worried, Chad.
You worry.
I am. I wish you hadn't done what you did at that meeting today.
Well, a fine future we'd have if I went around turning down cases and fees.
I've got a feeling about this, an awful feeling.
What?
Chad, I don't trust that man. I don't trust him a bit.
Oh, Nagel? Why, now, what in the world is there to mistrust about a man who did what he did? Now, I'm afraid you don't understand about those old Spanish families and their pride.
I'm afraid that I understand that man. Chad, he's too oily. He's too smooth.
Oh, come here. What's the use of wasting our time talking about Nagel when we could be talking about the moonlight. Us.
Oh, Chad.
Oh, Libby, I wonder if you'll ever know how much I...
Hey, Chad! Chad, I've got the horses here, and it's time to be riding back to the ranch.
What a time for him to show up. All right, Cherokee, be there in a few minutes.
Young fella, me lad, there's a cattle drive starting tomorrow morning. And if you want to be up at Navajo Basin with your herd at sunup, you better be getting some sleep.
My master's voice. And I guess he's right at that, Libby. Goodbye. I'll see you when we get back from market.
Be careful, Chad. Promise me you will.
Be careful. What about?
I don't know. Just be careful, Chad. Be careful about everything. Everything.
Be careful, she said. But by then it was too late. However, I slept well, and the next morning, Cherokee and I drove my little bunch of cattle that was ready for market up to Navajo Basin at the foot of Navajo Pass, and joined the other ranchers.
Chad, I doubt if I'll ever forgive you for taking me off of the back of that medicine wagon.
Oh, maybe you'd rather have been lynched for selling that phony medicine.
Pony or I, that rattlesnake oil is absolutely guaranteed 90 proof. I still think I'd rather have been lynched than to play nursemaid to a lot of cows. Yes, indeed. I really believe I would.
Oh,
Come on, Chad, you're late. One of the boys went up ahead already.
Oh, must have been a wide-open rush, eh, Kirby? Who was it that couldn't wait and started off by himself?
That was Jim Bodine. Said it'd be slow going through Navajo Pass, and we'd catch up with him anyhow.
Oh.
Everybody else here?
Yep, now that you two are. There's Frank Sherman, Ty McCarthy, and your old friend Bessie Dryden.
Hi there, Bessie. You look beautiful even in the early morning hours. That's the way you sell patent medicine.
Well, don't you try to sell me none of it.
Why should he? I'm paying him more as a cowboy than he made perpetrating that medicine fraud.
One thing I don't like about cowboying is these clothes.
What's wrong with the clothes?
Well, only got pint-sized pockets, and I'm a 2-quart man.
What we ought to do is dress you up like a Newfoundland dog and put a keg around you.
Chad, them shots. Seemed to me they came from up Navajo Pass.
Navajo Pass? Well, that's where Jim Bodine just went with his cattle.
For the love of Pete, look, isn't that a horse coming with its rider half off down out of the pass?
Hey, look. Jim Bodine. It appears like he's shot.
Hey, I wonder what in blazes happened.
Oh, we'll soon be finding out. Here comes that horse, wide open. Hey, Cherokee, come on, lend me a hand.
Oh, there. Hold it, you.
Slow down. Come on now. Stand still. There. Hey, Jim, what in the world happened to you?
Pass is barricaded. Won't let no one through.
Barricaded? Who barricaded the pass?
Your friend, your client, Nagel.
What?
Why, doggone you, Chad Remington. I got a good mind to knock your brains out.
Oh, now, if Jim's right, Bessie, and Nagel did barricade the pass, I wouldn't blame you. That is, if I have any brains. Come on, Cherokee. We're going up into Navajo Pass ourselves. Jim Bodine was right, except it wasn't exactly a barricade. It was more like the breastworks at Gettysburg. Wire had been strung up across the pass, and right below it were sandbags, each bag bristling with a rifle. Cherokee and I got within about 30 yards of it when... Oh, hold it, Cherokee. Whoa, whoa. This is far enough.
This is too far. Turn them horses and get out of here.
Just a minute, Buck. This gentleman I want to talk to.
Hey, Chad. That servant of Nagel's suddenly talks regular English.
Yeah, I'm afraid they both know a good deal more about English than we do. I suppose you can explain this, Nagel.
It's quite simple, Counselor. Nobody goes through Navajo Pass across my property without my permission. And my permission can be obtained only by buying it.
Your property? Navajo Pass is a public road.
Oh, so? You know, if you'd take the time to refer to some of the old maps, Mr. Remington, you'll find that the arroyo here to my left, which is on my property, used to be a riverbed and that the river flowed down through this pass.
You trying to be ridiculous? There's no river here now. And what's that got to do with it anyhow?
Well, it may have a lot to do with it, Cherokee. I suppose you realize, Nagel, that if you delay these ranches until the cattle buyers have gone back east, that every ranch is going broke.
Naturally. And therefore, they should be glad to pay for the privilege of crossing my land. Let's say $5 a head.
You know something? I'm even starting to doubt that this is your land.
You know, your doubts might have been well-founded before you so nicely drew up those leases. Now it's of record that every rancher around here has acknowledged in writing my title to this land.
Why, you're a bigger thief than I am. I used to be, that is.
Nagel, all I can tell you is this. So far, you've succeeded in sucking me in, making a fool of me. But that cattle's going to get to market on time. All right, turn that nag around, Cherokee. We're getting out of here.
You mean he can do that to us, Chad? Hold us up for $5 a head?
What do you think, Judge?
I think he's a blasted crook.
I'll bet you even that deed of his is a phony. Well, now that I think of it, I remember a druggist I used to buy stuff from. He had a way of taking a piece of paper and making it look old, like parchment.
And I'll wager that's exactly what Nagel did. Well, once we can establish that fact, we'll make short work of him. Chad, I'm going up to the state capitol at once.
Yeah, you should, Judge, but meantime, since possession is 9 points of the law and these cattle have got to get to market, Nagel's got us over a barrel. Unless
what?
Unless we can break through that barricade.
Well, how in the name of Simple Simon are you going to do that?
Now, wait a minute. Remember the yarn about the Trojan horse? Listen to me. The Greeks got their soldiers into Troy by hiding them inside a hollow horse. I think we can do the same thing and trample down that barrier and the men behind it by using our cattle. Cherokee, get out there and call in those outriders. We got to get these cattle running. Why, after what I'd let them in for, they even listened to me doesn't make much sense. Because the idea itself was as wild as a coyote that's been feeding on loco weed. But this was a desperate situation, called for desperate means. I knew that 50-odd ranchers and cowpokes wouldn't stand a chance against those rifles that stuck out of the barricade like quills out of a porcupine's back. About the only thing that could blast them out of there would have been cannon. Or, I hope, the surging, irresistible charge of some 3,000 head of cattle. Well, since, as we lawyers say, time is of the essence, we didn't waste time arguing. We lined up the herds about 8 abreast, packed close enough to just fill the pass so there'd be no turning back. And then with one wild whoop and the echo and roar of 6 guns, we started those cattle toward the barricade at a dead run.
Hey, look at them steers run, Chad.
Aye, Kirby, you keep back. Keep back of the cattle. They gotta break through first to make an opening for us.
They're getting through, Chad. They're getting through.
Don't let him get away. Come on. What are you packing left?
Hey, the wire's down, Chad. Them gun hands and Nagels are giving up.
Cherokee, you come on with me. Nagel and Palmero are scrambling up those rocks like mountain sheep.
Come on, you vagabonds. After Chad, up to those rocks.
Nagel, either stand where you are or we're gonna run you down.
Don't. I haven't even got a gun.
All right, hold it, Cherokee. Hold it. Keep these 2 buzzards covered.
Remington, this is something you're going to pay for personally. This is my land. Every foot of it is my land.
Yeah, I guess it is your land to all intents and purposes, Nagel. Because you're going to be living here, right here, for about the next 30 years. But it won't be at the so-called Chavez Rancho. No, it'll be down in town in the county jail.
Quiet! Quiet! There'll be silence in this courtroom while I pronounce sentence on the prisoners. Alfred Nagel, you will rise. This court finds you guilty of forgery, attempted homicide, and of operating a bunco game, and sentences you and Buck Palmer, alias Pomero, to state's prison for from 20 to 50 years at hard labor. Court dismissed.
Well, Libby, do you think your father was too hard on those crooks?
Far from it. Nagel should have gotten an extra 10 years for all those beautiful lies he told me the first time he came to the house.
Say, Chad, I hate to interrupt, but if it's all the same to you, well, I'd like to go back and take off these cowpuncher's clothes. Mighty uncomfortable, mighty uncomfortable.
What do you mean, Cherokee? They're too tight?
They sure are too tight, aren't they, Cherokee? With those pint-sized pockets, they sure choke a man who has a 2-quart thirst.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Frontier Town, starring Tex Chandler, is a Bruce Ells production. Story and supervision by Joel Murcott. Direction by Paul Franklin. Music written and played by Ivan Ditmars. Be sure to be with us again, same time next week, for another fine action-adventure story with your favorite young Western star, Tex Chandler. This is Bill Foreman telling you that Frontier Town came to you from Hollywood. Frontier Town, the saga of the Roaring West. Frontier Town. El Paso, Cheyenne, Calgary, Tombstone. Frontier Town. Here is the adventurous story of the early West, the tamed and the untamed. From the Pecos to Powder River, Dodge City to Poker Flat. These are the towns they fought to live in and lived to fight for. Teeming crucibles of pioneer freedom. Frontier Town!
Howdy. I'm Chad Remington. A cowtown lawyer, I guess you'd call me, although a lot of the folks in Dos Rios, where I come from, look at me with respect and address me as counselor. Of course, Dos Rios is just a sprawling, boisterous frontier town buried away just down below the Continental Divide, but, well, things do happen in our neck of the woods, which not alone make exciting telling, but make exciting living. For instance, not too long ago, something happened in a hotel room of a metropolitan city which affected me. Affected me? It darn near killed me. It seems that the hotel room was being occupied by the Right Honorable Quade Dunstan, perhaps the most influential of all our state senators. With a bottle and some glasses handy, the senator was entertaining a so-called constituent, a rancher by the name of King Carson, who runs some 6,000 head of cattle not too far from Dos Rios, in an isolated and lawless area we call the Seminole Strip. Like a lot of political constituents, King Carson had an axe to grind.
Senator, I certainly don't mean to threaten you, but if the Seminole Strip is taken into the state as a duly constituted county, you're going to have to look elsewhere for campaign funds next year.
Here, let me light that cigar for you, King. There you are. Now, let's look at this thing sensibly.
That's what I thought I was doing. Don't you see the way it stands now with no duly constituted law in this strip? The man with the most influence not only runs but practically owns the entire territory?
And since King Carson employs close to 100 punchers at his various establishments, King Carson is the most influential man in the Seminole Strip today.
Yeah, that's just about the size of it. And I'm not aiming on seeing it changed by having you boys vote favorably on the petition to take the strip in as part of the state.
King, I realize what it would mean if the petition was passed, state militia brought in and all that. But on the other hand, the Seminole Strip is wealthy and would mean a great deal in taxes to the state.
Taxes? Who cares about taxes? I pay for what I want, and I want that bill defeated.
Well, I certainly can't defeat it single-handed. However, with a little cooperation from you, we might accomplish our ends to the satisfaction of everyone.
Yeah? What do you mean, cooperation from me?
I figure I can create suspicion in the minds of my fellow senators about the advisability of taking in the Strip as a county of the state. Suspicion based on the unbridled lawlessness down there. And then the committee would come down to Seminole for a personal inspection. Unbridled lawlessness is the part in which you cooperate.
You mean stir up so much trouble in Seminole that they wouldn't want it in the state as a gift?
Precisely, Mr. Carson. Precisely. Can I depend on you to blast the Strip wide open with gunplay and everything else which will reflect on its citizenry?
Senator, not only can you count on me, but when you bring that committee down to inspect Seminole, they'll hear so much shooting it'll sound like the Battle of Bull Run.
Well, if you'd like to know what that little conversation had to do with Chad Remington, I can only say it came about because of a quite normal cause. A girl. Now, I guess I better make that the girl. Because although Libby is Judge Fillmore's daughter today, I'm kind of looking forward to the time when her name will be Libby Remington. Libby got into this by going down to Seminole to spend a week or two with her mother's brother, Uncle Rufe Tomlinson. And not 2 days after, I received a telegram saying that if it was at all possible, Libby would like me to come down at once. Business. Well, I got hold of Cherokee O'Bannon, former medicine man and now owner of the Dos Rios livery stable, and on the promise of a good time in Seminole, Cherokee not only loaned me a horse, but rode along with me. Just what the business was Libby referred to in her telegram, we found out hardly had we crossed the state boundary into the Seminole Strip.
Chad, now that we're here in Seminole, I don't want you to forget your promise to me. I'm looking forward with great anticipation to, shall I say, a merry old time while over here.
Oh, Mr. O'Bannon, I want to remind you that my word is as good as my bond.
Ah, yes, bond. What a beautiful word that is. Bond. Bottled in bond. precisely what I have in mind.
Now, you listen to me. You've already had 5 swigs out of that bottle of so-called genuine Cherokee Indian rattlesnake oil, and as far as
Marinated milch mackerel, Chad. Did you see that?
I sure did. That feed barn blew up practically in front of our eyes.
Now, who'd want to blow up a feed barn?
Don't ask me, but I got a feeling this is no place for us to loiter. We better knock on these horses and get over to Roof Tomlinson's ranch.
Ralph, I don't mean to doubt the veracity of a man like you, but what you're saying is totally unbelievable.
Well, I don't blame you for not believing it, Cherokee, but every word of what Uncle Rufus told you and Chad is the absolute truth. Gospel.
I'm sure it is, Libby, but it just doesn't make sense. Suddenly, with no reason, trouble should hit Seminole like a tidal wave. Shootings, killings, fires.
Shucks, if we could make head or tail out of it, I wouldn't have let my niece go sending that telegram.
Yeah.
Just like that feed barn you saw blown up. That makes sense?
Yeah, it makes a little sense if you're as bat-brained as I am.
Now, Chad, honestly, this is no time for joking.
Now, Libby, you know you've both been a little too close to the picture to get an honest perspective on it, but hasn't it ever occurred to you that just perhaps someone is stirring up all this lawlessness because there's a petition up at the Capitol now to take Seminole in as a county?
But why, Chad? Just tell me why someone would want to keep the Seminole Strip out of the state. What would they have to gain?
Well, might have a lot to gain at that, Libby. Right now, this here strip is sort of a governmental orphan. No real law down here.
And if the Strip isn't voted into the state, there may never be any law down here, except gun law. Tell me, Roof, how do the ranchers and other folks in Seminole feel about this crime wave?
Our men I've talked to are so blame upset they're ready to grab every gun and rifle they can lay a hand to. Just start blasting.
Uh-huh. Once they start doing that, Roof, you're going to be in the middle of the darndest range war you ever saw.
Yes, sirree, Bob. And if you start shooting each other, I'll bet you 1 whole case of my rattlesnake oil to a gopher hole. Those senators and politicians won't ever give you a county charter.
Oh, Chad, that would be terrible. Well, what do you think Uncle Roof and the rest should do? How can they fight back against someone they don't even know?
Libby, I'll tell you. The first thing is to get the decent citizens of Seminole together and talk sense into them. Make them realize they're only hurting themselves if they fly off the handle and try to fight back right now.
But gosh almighty, Chad, how are you going to talk to a lot of wild men? Then they got plenty of cause for being wild. They ain't acting like sensible human beings.
I'm not guaranteeing anything, mind you, but if you can round up 20 or 30 men you can depend on and get them to attend a meeting, I'll promise you this much. I'll make the darndest speech any lawyer has since the defense of Benedict Arnold. Roof Tomlinson did just what I asked him. The next morning, shortly before noon, 27 angry-faced ranchers filed into the little town hall to listen to me. I guess I wouldn't make too good a criminal lawyer, because all of my impassioned speechifying left them pretty cold. Until a tall, swarthy man got up in the audience and started down toward the platform where I was standing.
Now, just a minute, men, just a minute. I think Mr. Remington's right. He's absolutely right.
Well, thanks. I'm glad to find somebody who thinks I'm not all wrong. Come on up here.
Sure thing.
Yeah.
By the way, Remington, I'm King Carson, cattle broker here. I own the Frying Pan Ranch and 2 or 3 smaller spreads. So, you see, I've got a real interest in what you're talking about.
Oh, fine, Mr. Carson. And now, would you mind telling your neighbors just why you think they should leave their guns alone until such time as the state's voted favorably on your petition?
Well, all right, Remington. Although I'm not certain that making speeches is going to change the minds of this crowd.
Well, sir, they say they can't rule you off the track for...
Chad, look out! There's a man outside the window!
Chad, you all right? Yeah, I'm all right, Roof. But come on, all of you. Let's get outside after that bushwhacker.
Which way did that varmint go, Chad? Did you see?
I saw him. Hit his horse and ducked into that alley the other side of the hotel. Come on, man.
Carson, Genie, boys, grab your horses. Let's get after him.
All right, some of you circle the other way. Come on, Remington. Let's head for that alley.
I'm with you, Carson. All right, get up there, boy. Come on, boy. Come on.
Chad, we're running these horses to death, getting no place.
Well, Carson said he saw the man head this way.
I certainly thought I did.
Rein up, boys, hold it. Well, I'll be blamed. What do you make of this, Chad?
Oh, what could anyone make of it? Someone took a shot at me at the meeting and somehow got away.
Kind of makes fools out of us, too, doesn't it, Remington? After shooting off our mouths, telling the boys not to fly off the handle and start squeezing trigger, we do that very thing ourselves.
Well, Carson, now that I've been singled out as a target, I'm starting to feel the way the other men do.
What do you mean, singled out?
I mean, look here on the side of my neck.
Chad, your neck's all bloody.
That's right. 1/16 of an inch closer, and those 2 slugs would have stopped my speech-making permanently. Well, I got an idea there's someone who doesn't want any speech-making here in this strip. When I find the man, I've got a few oratorical gestures left I'm going to use on him. 10 raw-boned knuckles swung freely to punch home the points I'm going to make. And I don't mean in speeches.
We'll return to the exciting second act of our frontier town adventure in just about 1 minute. And now, Frontier Town.
I imagine if a bullet creased your neck that you'd feel a little bit personal about it, too. I did. And I'll freely admit it made me not only more interested, but more than a little bitter. It seemed apparent my first guess was right. And moreover, that someone who knew about my guess could breathe easier if I left the Seminole Strip in a long pine box. Well, after our wild goose chase, Cherokee and I went back to Rufe Tomlinson's ranch and sat around with Rufe and Libby trying to fit this jigsaw together.
Chad, I know how you feel, having been shot at.
Nearly killed, that's what he was. Nearly killed.
And I hope you won't jump down my throat for what I'm about to say.
Jump down your throat, Libby? Not until I have the legal right.
Well, what are you aiming to say, Libby?
Just this. Has it occurred to any of you that the only man at the entire meeting who claims he saw which way that gun-toter went was King Carson?
I don't know what you're driving at. King saw him ride into the alley.
King said he saw him ride into the alley.
Libby, now I know why I feel like I do about you. I think you hit the nail right on the thumb. King Carson, why not? A man who owns as much land as he does certainly could stand to gain by having the state reject Seminole as a county.
You're right, he'd really be a king. The king of the whole Seminole domain. Well, supposing you 3 are right, and I ain't saying you are, how are you ever going to find out?
I don't know for sure, Rufe, but I think if Cherokee and I rode over and paid a call on his lordship, King Carson, at his office, my legal training might give me a few questions to ask him that'd prove just a little embarrassing. Come on, Cherokee. You and I are riding.
Why, doggone it, King, don't go bawling me out. I done exactly what you told me to do.
Oh, sure, Toby. You did exactly what I told you to do. The only thing you didn't do was to put one of those 2 slugs through that rattle-brained lawyer's thick skull. If I hadn't led that posse on through the alley, you'd be dangling from a tree right now.
Yeah, you're so smart. Maybe you better do everything yourself.
There's one thing I will do myself, Toby, if you don't stop talking back. Oh.
King, you got no business slapping me.
I'm not going to slap you again, because I don't go around slapping corpses. And if you don't get that Chad Remington once and for all before today is over, a corpse is exactly what you're going... What are you staring at?
King, quick.
Huh?
See who just rode up here? It's Remington, that partner of his.
Well, that simplifies everything, doesn't it?
Simplifies?
Yeah. Since I can't trust you to take care of Remington, this gives me a chance to do it for you. Now, you stay here and stall him. I'm going out the side door and slip around to the rear window. All you have to do is to get him with his back to that window. But you'd better not slip up on that. That's all I've got to say.
You black-hearted bag of wind. I got a good notion.
I'll be right back, Cherokee. This won't take a minute. Oh, howdy, King Carson around?
Why, King, be right back. Yeah, right back. Just make yourself comfortable. Take that chair over there by the window.
Well, thanks. Don't mind if I do stretch my legs a little. Good grief. Shot twice through his back. You sneaking bushwhacker! Out of sight already. Every time I turn my back, someone else is...
Here. What's going on in my...
What? Toby.
Killed.
Well, now, look here, Carson. Don't look at me like that. I had nothing to do with it. I was just standing
here. Oh,
here...
you didn't, eh? Now, what are you doing just putting your gun back in your holster?
Good grief, can't you see the glass in that side window's broken? Someone shot through there.
What does that prove? Nothing. And if you think we're going to stand by here and let you get away with a cold-blooded murder, my friend, you've made the biggest mistake of your life.
Come on, you. We're taking you out to the nearest cottonwood and end your speech-making with a rope.
Have you men all been smoking local weed?
What do you mean?
If Remington shot somebody, then some bullets ought to be missing out of his gun. If he's still got 6 bullets in it, then he isn't the man you're looking for.
No, just a minute, Cherokee. I appreciate what you're trying to do. As for those shots,
No use wasting your breath arguing, Chad. Just hand over your gun. Here, I'll get it.
This is utterly ridiculous. We heard the shots and came in
Now,
here and
there's
found
no
him.
use squawking, King.
But he...
If these slugs are in Remington's gun, he couldn't have done the killing.
Blame right. Now, here's his gun. Look for yourself.
Thanks. Well, I'll be hanged. There isn't one chamber empty.
What?
No, sir, not one. I'm mighty glad you spoke up, fella. We might have hung the wrong man. I'm plumb sorry.
You're plumb sorry. Oh, friend, this is one of the happiest moments of my life. Of course, I'm sorry to disappoint Mr. Carson, because now he'll have to find someone else to charge with this particular murder.
Oh, Cherokee, you're wonderful.
You're telling me, Libby? Why, before I got my medicine wagon, I worked the Chautauqua route with the shell game. Here it is. Now it's not there. What shell is it under? Best man in the business, if I say so myself. Yes, indeed.
You must have been the best man, Cherokee. Although I don't see how, with everybody looking at you, you still managed to palm my gun, which had 2 shells shot out of it, and give them the Colt out of the dead man's holster.
Neither do I.
Well, since it's not considered ethical to give away any professional tricks of prestidigitation, I'll have to refuse to answer. But I'm mighty glad that for once I was able to help Chad instead of Chad always helping me. By the way, wouldn't you say it calls for a little libation about this time, Chad?
Oh, Bannon, you can drink your fool head off.
Well, thank you.
Just as soon as we've gotten the goods on King Carson and turned him over to the nearest marshal.
I knew there'd be some string attached to that.
Talking about getting the goods is a lot different from actually getting the goods, Chad.
I'll say amen to that, Libby.
Now, let's save our amens for Carson's funeral if we're good and lucky. Because we'll have to be lucky to pin anything on him.
We will?
Yeah, he's smart. Slick as a jackrabbit in an oil well. Look at what he framed on me.
What's that?
Well, the way I figure it, the man he killed was a man who worked for him that he wanted to get rid of.
So?
So he killed him figuring the mob had killed me, thereby getting rid of both of us and keeping his own hands clean.
And again, I say so.
So, my dear Miss Persistence, I think that since King Carson considers himself an expert at murder, what we've got to do is plan another one for him. Just pray that we're lucky enough to stop him before it's too late. I didn't mean to sound enigmatic, but there wasn't much more I could tell him at the time. I was still a little shaken up from having escaped hanging, thanks to Cherokee's quick wit and even more nimble fingers. But most of all, I didn't have anything definite worked out. And then when I heard the next day that Senator Quade Dunstan and his committee had arrived from the state capitol and that the senator was putting up at King Carson's place, everything soon seemed to fit together.
Of course, Senator, I can't say things worked out 100%. But I think there's been enough trouble around Seminole for your committee to refuse action on the petition to take it in as a county.
Of course. I certainly wish you'd gotten rid of that Chad Remington instead of bungling that up.
Yes, well, Oh, that's funny. Someone coming here at this time of night. Excuse me, Senator. I'll open the door.
Evening, King. Mind if I come in?
I'm busy at the moment, Roof. Won't tomorrow do?
No, I'm afraid this is one thing that won't wait.
Senator, this is Roof Tomlinson, a neighbor of mine.
Oh, how do you do, Mr. Tomlinson? Pleased to know you, Senator. I'm sorry I had to come in like this, but I'd like to talk to Mr. Carson alone.
Well, what about, Roof?
Well, I happen to know who shot Toby at your place the other day.
What?
Oh, really? Well, how interesting. The senator's here to find out just who it is who's been stirring up all the trouble, so he'll be just as interested as I am in finding out what you know.
Now, wait a minute, King. You sure you want me to tell what I saw?
Why, certainly. We've got to bring that kind of a sneaking buzzard to justice. You know the man's name?
Well,
Then, maybe you can describe him, huh? Would you say he was about my build?
yes, I would.
And would you say he looked anything like Mr. Carson?
Yeah, I'd say that, too. You see, I was just turning the corner when I saw the whole thing happen.
Well, Senator?
King, I'm afraid this gentleman is a little too frank to be trusted for too long.
That's what I was thinking, too. What did you come here for, Tomlinson? Think you could blackmail me?
Why, you smooth-talking vulture. You're the one that's been trying to blow the Seminole Strip to bits.
You're absolutely right, Senator. He's not a man to be trusted at all. I'm sorry to have to do this to you, Roof, but our game has gone a little too far to allow you to break it up.
Carson, for heaven's sake, stop wasting time. Squeeze that trigger and get it over with.
Hey, who's that?
Drop that gun, Carson.
Go on, drop
it.
Beautiful shooting, Chad. Blasted that gun right out of his hand.
All right, open the front door, Roof. Let Cherokee in. I'm saving my strength and coming in through this window.
You're darn right, Chad. And, Senator, you better sit right where you are.
Are you...
Yeah.
Well, we sure got him dead to... Chad, Carson, he's got another...
A sleeve gun, huh? Well, Carson,
Senator, my gun is on the floor there.
grab him, Cherokee.
Why, you lily-livered, penny-pinching politician, you... Why, you... Great jumping G-horse, Chad. You doubled Carson up like a jackknife. All right, you. Stand still. Get your hands off of me and keep them off.
Why, sure, Senator. We'll be pleased to get our hands off you, but not before a federal marshal gets his hands on you. The three of us heard more than enough out of you and Carson to guarantee the next soapbox you'll campaign from will be in the laundry of the federal penitentiary.
Now, listen to those bells. I'll bet both of you, the good citizens of Seminole, will keep the tocsin ringing until well past midnight.
I'm sure they will. This is really a celebration for them finally getting the county charter.
You're right about them, Libby, but I'm afraid that isn't what's on Cherokee's mind. He's all in the lather about not being able to participate in the celebration, the libation part of the celebration.
Well, after he's practically saved your life by that sleight of hand he performed changing guns, I think he's entitled to a reward.
Now you're talking. Yes, indeed you are.
Well, I fully intend to see that Cherokee gets a reward, his just reward.
That sounds more like it.
You know what your just reward is? Having found out what a great magician you are, hereafter I'm just going to give you an empty glass so you can say hocus pocus over it and produce your own libation.
Why, of all the nefarious schemes...
Come on, Libby, come on. We'll never get back to Dos Rios if we listen to Cherokee singing How Dry I Am. With the election of a new senator coming up, I want to get home for the vote.
All right, girl. Let's get stepping.
Hey, I can't ride that fast. I've got a bottle in my hip pocket.
Don't worry about that, Cherokee. If that bottle breaks, the drinks will be on the horse.
Frontier Town, starring Tex Chandler, is a Brussels production. Supervision by Joel Murcott. Story and direction by Paul Franklin. Music written and played by Ivan Ditmar. Be sure to be with us again, same time next week, for another fine action-adventure story with your favorite young Western star, Tex Chandler. This is Bill Foreman telling you that Frontier Town came to you from Hollywood.